when half of children are pre-diabetic, when 7 out of 10 Americans are overweight or obese, and when 50% of Americans who reach the age of 80 have some form of dementia, I'm very concerned for our future.
What I'd like to do initially, Robert, is to have you tell us why you have so much passion around brain health.
Both my mother and my father had pretty bad memory. I became concerned, and I became especially concerned because I have two grandfathers who had dementia. I'm currently engaged in a clinical trial with the FDA, and we are using an investigational drug that's shown to be extremely safe, and it's been helpful in people reverse Alzheimer's disease. In dissection studies, people with Alzheimer's disease, there's two things they noted about minerals. One, I'd love to give you my top 5 brain supplements just to help people. Number 1 is
So, Dr. Robert Love, I'm really excited to have a conversation with you today and really get some depth of understanding for people. And you, the listener, are going to really love this because Robert has spent his adult life doing deep level research. And what I'd like to do initially, Robert, is to have you tell us where you are right now in your life and the things that you're bringing forth, and then give us a quick snapshot, reverse engineer it back to how you ended up doing this and why you have so much passion around brain health specifically, and how that works systemically throughout the body and how so many things affect the brain. So if you could give us that, that'd be a perfect place to start.
Well, Ian, I'm so excited to be here with you. You and I have had a number of conversations and interviews, and I'm honored to be one of your first interviews for your podcast. I view you as this wonderful sage in the world of health and providing a lot of great information, also great products to people. And so I'm so glad you're now moving into the podcast. And so I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you for including me in this.
Yeah.
So
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Robert Love. I'm a neuroscientist, and I specialize in helping people prevent Alzheimer's disease with science. So about 5 years ago, my parents asked me to come back home to help my mother recover from back surgery. And it was at this time that I noticed that both my mother and my father had pretty bad memory. I became concerned, and I became especially concerned because I have two grandfathers who had dementia. One had Alzheimer's disease, one had dementia unspecified, which we now think was related to dry cleaning chemicals. He was a dry cleaner. And so I was very concerned about both my parents and then their cognitive decline. I was very very concerned. And so at the time, I was focusing on attention deficit disorder, coaching parents and children with attention deficit disorder, helping them manage that. And I became really interested in, can Alzheimer's disease be prevented? Can memory loss be reversed? And I really got into the research. It was at that time that I switched my focus from attention deficit disorder to Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's prevention. And the first thing I had my parents do was change their diet. I learned how much sugar negatively affects the brain and how much sugar increases risk of type 2 diabetes. That's a major risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. So I got the sugar out of the house, and I started with chocolate. And so interesting enough, my first vision of my life was, I'm going to help end Alzheimer's disease with chocolate. And so I made a healthy chocolate. And I'm in my parents' basement, my parents' kitchen, making healthy chocolate with all the healthy things you can think of: lion's mane mushrooms, matcha. It's got Ceylon cinnamon in it, curcumin, black pepper. I got all these healthy things in it. It tasted great. So that was the first venture in the Alzheimer's prevention world. And then I got more into sharing information, into public facing education. I got very fortunate, very blessed. I posted a couple of videos on TikTok, and those went viral about preventing Alzheimer's disease, the role of mouth bacteria in preventing Alzheimer's disease. And then since then, I've been both doing research, but also publishing a lot of content online, free content on helping people prevent Alzheimer's disease based upon the science. And so that's how I got into this. And then I'm really passionate about this. Well, a couple reasons. Number one, personally, I'm scared. I'm scared of our future when half of children are pre-diabetic, when 7 out of 10 Americans are overweight or obese, and when 50% of Americans who reach the age of 80 have some form of dementia. I'm very concerned for our future. Most of that links back to our food. And so if we don't do something, we're in trouble. The world does not work when half the population is sick and then the other half takes care of them. That's not a world that I want to live in. So I really want to prevent that for myself and for my future descendants. I'm not I don't have children right now, but I'd like to. So I want them to have a world where not everyone is sick. And then number two, I because of my family, I watched both grandfathers deteriorate, and it was very hard on my parents and very hard on our family. And I don't want to see my parents go through that. So I'm very passionate about this for their sake as well.
Yeah, the one thing that has been very intriguing over the last couple of years that I've got to know you is I've watched you uh, be like a solo act, which is very rare, and you've scaled your social media presence to levels that I didn't even know were possible without a major team. And your brain works extremely well, and you've got an incredibly good, solid personality where you can feel your real care for people. And you've shared so much info. How many followers do you have right now on social media platforms altogether?
Approximately 4.8 million, 4.9 million across. TikTok is my biggest, and then Instagram, Facebook. I don't really have Twitter. I'm just starting Twitter, so my Twitter following is in the thousands. And then I just have a little bit on YouTube, but mostly Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And so almost 5 million there. And then I have, as of this date, about 140, 150,000 people on my email list. And I'm really excited about that because these are people who get regular communication from me. And the vast majority of it is, hey, I want you to know this because this can help you improve your health. And so I get to reach, you know, half people open email or 30 people open email. I get to reach 30,000, 60,000 people every day, every other day saying, hey, have you tried mushrooms? Mushrooms are so great for your brain. Research out of from 2017, the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease showed that those who eat mushrooms 3 times a week or more have about a 43% reduction in their risk of dementia. That's amazing. Most people don't know that. So I love just sharing like that with people. And then I posted a video about this. Someone said, hey, I'm going to eat mushrooms 3 times a week now. Wonderful. It's so great. There's so much information, as you know, in the world that can help people. And it's not hard. It's not hard to wake up in the morning and get sunshine when you first wake up. It's not hard to eat mushrooms 3 times a week. It's not hard to use allulose or monk fruit sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup or agave. By the way, please don't use agave. Agave is horrible. It's high fructose corn syrup masquerading as a health food. It's more expensive than high fructose corn syrup. And it's just as bad. And our body almost instantly turns it into fat. And so, these are important things that people want to know. And I'm so happy to share it with them in the hopes that some of them use it and then live a healthier life.
Yeah, and it turns it into the wrong kind of fat. It's like the worst fat ever, visceral and
Oh,
white and yellow. And wow, it's what a
yeah, people don't
scourge,
understand.
right?
Yeah, it's a good point. So there's two types of fat. There's the visceral fat, which is the belly fat. That's the dangerous fat. That's actually more related to heart disease, if I'm correct, than cholesterol level. So if you can measure someone's visceral fat, that's a greater indication of their health than their cholesterol level in many ways. And then there's the subcutaneous fat. This is the jiggle on the butt. This is maybe under the arms. This is just fat that's not around the gut and the organs. So visceral fat can be around the organs as well, which is really dangerous. Think fatty liver disease. That's the worst place to have fat is around your organs. And so yeah, it gets turned into that. Interesting side note, curcumin, those who take a curcumin supplement, those people put on less fat. They're just healthier. I think if I'm remembering the study correctly, it was a study in mice or rats, and they gave them a curcumin supplement. They gave them a high fat, high sugar diet. So the standard American diet, right? So you got fast food. So you got a bunch of fatty food, and then you got a bunch of sugar in there. This causes fat storage or weight gain. Those who took their curcumin supplement had less fat around their organs than the ones who did not get curcumin. And so if you're going to eat the really unhealthy food, I don't recommend that. But if you are, you can take a curcumin supplement that can help reduce the amount of fat that accumulates around your organs, which keeps you much healthier.
Right. And the other thing that I've learned over the years is the free insulin and the free glucose that is not being used properly, where the insulin is blocked from getting the glucose into the cell. And now that free insulin, free glucose, what kind of inflammatory issues are around that for the brain and the gut?
I'm so glad you mentioned inflammation. And so I'll try to keep this really basic. The more and more we look at the science, inflammation is a major risk factor for most chronic diseases, including Alzheimer's disease. Almost all risk factors of Alzheimer's disease come down to inflammation. Almost all of them directly affect inflammation. You mentioned type 2 diabetes. So that's a two-way street. Inflammation increases the risk of type 2 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes increases inflammation. And so it's a
Mhm.
really nasty cycle. And so inflammation is basically it's harming your body. It's harming your cells. It can cause damage to your cells. It increases aging. Inflammation is a major cause of aging, and so also heart disease. And so one of the best things you can do is to reduce inflammation, ideally starting with your diet. You can also start with stress or your sleep. One of those three is probably going to be the best thing for most people. And by reducing inflammation, by removing the inflammatory foods, now what foods are causing inflammation? We're talking the highly processed oils.
Yep.
We're talking the seed oil, not black seed oil. That's amazing. And not hemp seed oil, but pretty much the other seed oils, canola, corn, sunflower, safflower, vegetable oil, the highly processed oils, and also the shelf stable foods. How do you make a food shelf stable? Well, food's not naturally shelf stable unless it's completely dehydrated like a powder. And so it's got inflammatory oils in there that our body doesn't know how to process and how to use. And so when you eat food that's not natural to our body, that can create inflammation. So remove the packaged and processed foods, eat lots of organic fruits and vegetables, eat a healthy form of protein. It could be grass-fed beef or pastured eggs, or it could be from healthy plant sources. So that's a huge thing. Getting our sleep. If you don't sleep, that increases inflammation. If you're sedentary, that increases inflammation. So go for a walk at least once a day. Ideally, you're playing a sport, playing pickleball, chasing kids around the house or grandkids around the house. That's a great way to exercise. I put my nephews on my back doing squats and push-ups. I was supposed to watch. I was watching them for an hour. Said, "Hey, it's Uncle Robert's time to exercise. Come here, jump on my back. We're going to do some squats. I'm going to chase you around the house." And so it's possible to exercise with kids around. By the way, mothers who are watching this, your children learn their exercise habits from you. Mothers who exercise have kids who exercise. So make sure you get your exercise in. Tell your kids what you're doing. Let them see you do it, and then they are much more likely to do it, and they might come along as well. And so the big takeaway is that anything that increases inflammation likely accelerates aging, which most of us don't want. I'm 42. I'd like to look this way or younger for the next 80 years. So I'd like to be 120 in good health and be able to contribute to the world and still look about like this. I don't know if that's possible, but it might be. And so reducing inflammation is a great place to start. And then inflammation increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Inflammation increases the risk of heart disease and most chronic diseases, some forms of cancer, potentially most. And so by changing your diet, getting your exercise in, getting your sleep in, and then you can take some anti-inflammatory supplements. I mentioned curcumin, black seed oil, I believe, has a great anti-inflammatory benefit to it. Some mushrooms can have anti-inflammatory benefits like lion's mane. Lots of anti-inflammatories out there. Quercetin, Ceylon cinnamon, I could go on. These things can really help reduce the inflammation and really help slow down aging and improve our health. And then I'll give you something that's really cutting edge that you're probably not going to hear anything else. I'm currently engaged in a clinical trial with the FDA, and we are using an investigational drug that's shown to be extremely safe in both animals and in humans, and it's been helpful in people reversing Alzheimer's disease in humans. And guess what it does? It greatly reduces inflammation. This new drug is extremely safe, extremely beneficial, and it dramatically reduces inflammation. And we're seeing results in our patients in this clinical trial, and doctors that we've talked to, they've all seen results, and the results are just astounding, and basically just dramatically reduces inflammation on a very, very big level. And so this inflammation is a really darn big deal for people to know about.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned the oils. There's been a whole study on seed oils, particularly, which became an absolute scourge starting in the early 70s. And it's adulterated. Adulterated seed oils are, they're rancid, they're damaged in process. The body should not have more than 1% seed oil in their diet, and your body does not want more than 1%. And that 1% better be unadulterated. That means therapeutic. Therapeutic seed oils, we've seen huge results from. And the whole, like you talked about the inflammatory, well, it's like literally burning the body from the inside out. And it also plugs all your pathways so you can't get the really good nutrition to the brain. Now, when I was looking at the Alzheimer's for like cadavers, people who had died of Alzheimer's or dementia, and they opened up the skull and had a look, it looked
Hmm.
like the shriveled brain, like the whole back of the brain
Hmm.
was all
Hmm.
shriveled up and looked like it had been dried up. Hydration, dehydration was a problem. And I think these seed oils are just so bad for every organ in your body, as well as especially the brain. What have you seen around that shrinkage, that atrophying, or that, like, really the brain is a muscle, right? And because you
Yes.
got mental strength. What have you seen around that?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. There's really interesting data on this. And so in dissection studies, people with Alzheimer's disease, there's two things they noted about minerals. One, Alzheimer's brains had a deficiency in magnesium. A deficiency in magnesium. We can talk more about magnesium later. It's used in over 300 enzymatic processes in your body, from energy to stress reduction to muscles to sleep to the immune system. And so they had a deficiency in magnesium. Number two, they found more aluminum in the Alzheimer's brains. Now, I had to change my stance on this. And so a good scientist will change their perspective or opinion based upon the current science. So I was looking at older data. It didn't show a relationship with aluminum in the brain, and the newer data shows that there is. I had to change my position because I said, look, I haven't seen the data on Alzheimer's and aluminum. The current data shows, yeah, there's an impact, and so reducing our exposure to aluminum is a really good idea. Whether it's cooking pans, whether it's aluminum foil, or whether it's uh, deodorant, whether it's antiperspirants, which can have aluminum in it. So those are two striking things we found about that. And then, as you mentioned, the brain is really shriveled in the Alzheimer's brains, in particular the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain. I mean, the whole brain is smaller. Brain volume has decreased, and in particular the memory center. Good news. You probably know this, and a lot of people are now finding this out. What we learned in high school is not correct. So remember, we want to adjust our perspective based upon the new science. The current science shows that adults, humans, can grow new brain cells even into their 90s. There's been great work by Dr. Elizabeth Gould, a neuroscientist at Princeton, who showed that adult mammals can all grow new brain cells in our hippocampus, the memory center of our brain, except bats. I don't know why bats can't do it, but she found pretty much every mammal she looked at, we can all grow new brain cells. It's called neurogenesis. I know in high school we learned you can't grow new brain cells. That's not true. And then there's great research by Kirk Erickson and colleagues out of the University of Pittsburgh. What they found was that older adults who exercise, we'll say 60 and up, those who exercise actually grew a bigger brain over 6 months compared to those who just did stretching. So think someone who does yoga versus someone who's doing aerobic exercise. The aerobic exercise group, they measured brain volume. They actually grew a bigger brain. This is going to be less striking in younger adults because the brain hasn't begun to shrink, to deteriorate. But if we don't use it, as you mentioned, think of the brain as a muscle. If we don't use it, it will naturally shrink. We'll lose connections, and brain cells will die out. Especially if you're not nourishing your brain with important things like healthy fat and water and minerals like magnesium. And so, what they found was that the adults who were exercising regularly had bigger brains, and so we can grow bigger brains. Brain volume really matters. And so, the things that people want to start with is number one, exercise. That's free. Goodness gracious, get your exercise in. We as humans evolved moving, and I've heard some people say, "I don't like exercise." I said, "That's just not true. If you're alive today, every single ancestor of yours enjoyed moving their body. That's why we were able to survive as hunters and gatherers. And so just find the exercise that you like doing. Now, you might need to lose some weight to make it more enjoyable. I can understand if someone's overweight or obese, it's very hard to move your body. It might be painful. But once you kind of can get through that, your body loves exercise, as does your brain. It feels so good for our cognitive abilities. So getting your daily exercise in, start wherever you are. You might want to work with a physical trainer to help you get started, and make sure you get really good shoes. Shoes really matter with your exercise. And then making sure you're getting enough magnesium either through a supplement or magnesium-rich foods. For example, almonds are rich in magnesium. And then getting your sleep. Sleep is when we make those new brain cells. Sleep is when we actually wire up new memories. And so sleep is essential for a healthy brain. It not only cleans out garbage in our brain. The glymphatic system is a discovery in the last 10 years. The glymphatic system is like the lymphatic system for the brain. It basically cleanses the brain. It helps wash out plaques and toxins overnight. And it's so important, Ian. It's so important that those who have a sleep deficit for one night, if you don't get good sleep for one night, let's say you get 3 hours instead of 8, you will have more plaque in your brain and more plaque in your blood than someone who slept well. That's
Mhm.
astounding. Just one day, there's more plaque in your brain from not sleeping. That's how important this system is. So it washes out plaque, helps wash out toxins. And so getting your exercise, healthy nutrition, and sleep, healthy nutrition, especially the healthy oils, um, the the DHA, the omega-3 fatty acids are really good for our brain. Our brain outside of water is made primarily of fat. And so eating grass-fed beef is a good source, healthy fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. I'll give you a little shortcut to remember that. Those are the smash fish. This is from Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the book, um, The End of Alzheimer's, The End of Alzheimer's Program. So smash, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Make sure it's wild-caught salmon and Atlantic mackerel, not king mackerel. Those are some healthy fatty fish. Or you can take 1 to 3 grams of fish oil a day. I know that's a big dose. It's worth it. I mean, imagine that fat is going to your brain and helping repair brain cells, giving your brain the raw materials to potentially make new brain cells. It's worth spending the money on a really high quality fish oil supplement to get 1 to 3 grams a day of really healthy fats available for your brain.
Yeah, and the movement thing, that's so huge. Like we move a lot when we're young, and then the older a person gets, they stop their movement. And the more you stop your movement, you end up not moving at all in your casket, or in the urn. So you want to move
That's
more
some
and more.
morbid humor right there. Yeah, you want to stop
That's right.
moving, you will be in the ground. You'll be 6 feet under soon. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So what I came up with was a really simple fix on that, where I have an invisible skipping rope and I can put it in my pocket and it doesn't even take space in my pocket. And so all day throughout the day, I'll take it out of my pocket. My invisible skipping rope is real, but it doesn't have anything, doesn't have any handles or any leather straps to it at all. And I take it out and I skip. I skip 100 times, which only takes a minute. And so I just jump up and down. I don't need a rebounder. I mean, rebounders are great if you have one, but I don't need it. And I don't have to drag equipment out. I don't have to find a space for it. My invisible skipping rope doesn't hit the desk or the kitchen counter or wherever I happen to be. And just that jumping up and down immediately pumps your lymphatic, which ties into what you said for the lymphatic system in the brain. And it gets those fluids moving and it gets everything so you can detox better. So something as simple as that. And another really cool hack that I found is a lightweight kettlebell. And it does
I
not have to be
love
a big,
kettlebells. How do you like to
yeah.
use your kettlebell?
Well, all I do is I do nonstop for 5 minutes. And you can start it with a minute if you haven't done it yet. But you want to get up to 5 minutes straight and it's not heavy. I use a 15-pound kettlebell. That's it. And you just, grab it, move it up and down above your head. You can take it and go like this several times. You can swing it between your legs. You can move it around your head. So when you hold a kettlebell like this and you just go around and around and around 10 times like this, it is extremely beneficial for your shoulders. It's very smooth. It doesn't stress you out. It's really easy to do. You move it around your head 10 times one way and 10 times the other way. And then you can move your head around like that, gently until you can really do it comfortably. But just simple things that you take that 5 minute span, and you can do this throughout the day. You don't have to have gym clothes on. You don't sweat. It's going to bring your heart rate up, which is really good to get all the fluids pumping. But it's easy. 15 pounds is nothing, but it's something. And it means that you're not thinking, oh, I've got to get up early in the morning and I got to do this whole thing. No, you do it throughout the day because the more you do it throughout every single day, the better it is. It's got aerobic, it's a bit of intensity training, but it's movement. And it gets you, it's just fun, and you'll notice immediately it will bring energy into your body throughout the day. So I love this whole topic around movement.
That's fantastic. And then I really like the chair squats for people just getting started. So if someone
Mhm.
is overweight or obese and isn't able to do a squat, you can basically stand in front of a chair, sit down, and stand back up. That's a chair squat. And so you're especially if you're an older adult, if you're concerned about falling. By the way, reducing the risk of falls is one of the best things you can do to protect your brain because falls after the age of, let's say, 65, 70 can be really detrimental. So you really want to avoid them. I got my parents, I said, look, mother, nothing overhead in the kitchen. She said, well, that's where I keep those things. I said, okay, we're bringing that down, or we're buying you a bigger house. You're not getting on a chair, reaching over your head. It's just not worth it. And so, and also, oh, slippers. My my mother had, she's like, I like these really cute slippers and they're kind of slip on. You want slippers with a back that feels like a shoe because
Yep.
then you're much less likely to fall downstairs. These are real big deals. I use them too. I don't wear slip-on slippers in the house or sandals without a back in the house. I wear either shoes or I'm wearing slippers with a back that have some grip to them. Much safer. So chair squats. So you can just sit down and stand up. If you do that 10 times, your heart rate goes up. I like to do sets of 25 full squats after meals. By the way, that's one of the best times to exercise. As soon as you finish a meal, get up and go for a walk. Research
Hmm.
shows that walking after a meal significantly reduces blood sugar because you're using your post-meal blood sugar. It's called postprandial in the scientific literature. They like to use big words to make it difficult for regular people to understand what they're talking about. But it reduces post-meal blood sugar because it uses your muscles, and our muscles are using glucose for energy, and then all of a sudden they're sucking up the glucose that's in the bloodstream, and it drops your blood sugar levels post-meal. And so if you don't know when to do this, do it right before, or excuse me, right after a meal. Once you're done, stand up, go for a walk, or do some chair squats, do some invisible skipping, do something. That's one of the best times to exercise because your muscles will suck up that energy from your blood right after your meal.
Right. And also hydration. So what I do, one of my practices is between meals. So 2 hours after I eat, I start drinking lots of water with an electrolyte in it. And I stop drinking that half an hour before the meal because if you are diluting your stomach acid, you're not getting the nutrients out of your food properly. Another thing is really important is to chew a mouthful. Like don't just put a little bit of food in your mouth and chew it a few times and swallow it. Fill your mouth with food and chew it 75 times. And that breaks down the nutrient, the surface area of the nutrient. It puts way more saliva in your food. And now you've got like the size of a soccer field in your tummy worth of surface area. And now your body's going to get those nutrients that are going to feed your brain and feed the rest of your body and give you better energy. Plus, you hit the wall on you feel full a lot sooner, and that way you don't overeat because people are not getting the right balance between the different types of food they're eating, and then the stomach is having a problem. And if you are not breaking that surface area down of the food and you're not getting the nutrients out of the food properly, your brain thinks it's starving, and then it will tell the body to store fat, which you don't want because you don't need that. I mean, we could talk about diet for hours and hours, but we're not going to do that today because
We,
that's
we could.
not the thing. But whatever food you're eating, make sure you fill your mouth full, chew it really, really, really good. If you have meat in your mouth, chew it over 100 times because food is much more, or meat rather, is much more difficult for your body to get the nutrients out of if you don't chew it properly. So breaking it down, like really turn your food into juice. The other pleasure benefit of that is you get to taste all the food better, and it gives your brain more time to scan all the nutrients that you're consuming so it knows where to deliver them to the body. If you just swallow it, your brain's like, what happened? Something came in, but I'm not sure what it was. And so your brain is going to constantly monitor through your taste buds. That's why we taste and we smell, because the brain is always sensing everything that's coming in. So these are simple things. They don't cost any money. In fact,
They increase
right
joy,
now, yeah, you get
increases
some
food
joy from it.
pleasure.
Yep. And I've dropped my grocery bill is 80% less than it was a year ago.
Really?
Just by, yep, just by
So
learning
I
more
definitely want to know
facts.
what are you buying? What can you share from your grocery list? I just went to there's a hurricane in Florida. I just went to Costco and loaded up on a bunch of non-perishable foods that I'm going to eat over however long I'm going to have them. I'm a big believer in preparation for emergencies. What is on your grocery bill? And I want to know what the key 20% is on this grocery bill.
Right? Yeah, the 80% reduction. So I buy the most valuable food that there is. It's grass-fed, it's organic. I make all my own meals. Even if I go to a restaurant, I can go and enjoy it at a restaurant. I'll just eat the very most important things in that meal, but I'm full right away. And so I give other stuff off my plate or ask to pack it up, and I'll give that food away to someone, or I'll take it home. But most of the food that I get at a restaurant specifically, I wouldn't eat anyway because I know that it's inflammatory to me. And I don't even know how they prepped it or what they put in it, what oils, even some of
I
the
know
better restaurants.
So I was going out to dinner with my dad, and I said, "Dad, I don't think you want to eat these things." And this was a time where I was helping educate him on what's in our food. He said, "Son, I expect to be poisoned a little bit when I go out to eat." I said, "That's an astounding statement because you're paying for this. So you're paying to be poisoned." And that's where he was at the time. He was just annoyed that I kept on telling him, "Hey, I don't think you want to eat that. That causes inflammation. That causes inflammation." But some people have this belief that, hey, I'm just going to go out and it's okay if the restaurant hurts me a little. It's not that often. But it is that often because people say, well, my birthday, I'm gonna eat whatever I want. Holidays, I'm gonna eat whatever I want. Families come over, eat whatever I want. I'm gonna go out to eat a restaurant. Now it's not just one day a year for your birthday or a holiday. It's now once a week, and now that's a darn big deal. Or it's a couple times a month. Um, and so what's one of my favorite food hacks is bringing olive oil to the restaurant because I don't want to use their salad dressing. So I'll bring my own
Right.
olive oil. Restaurants are totally fine with that. I'll bring my own sauces. So if I go to a barbecue restaurant, I'll bring my own barbecue sauce, and I could also bring my own dessert. I did this when we were in Miami. We met up in Miami.
Yep.
I brought my own dessert, and I said, "Look, I can't eat anything on your dessert menu because it's got refined sugar. It's probably got bad fats in it. It's probably got gluten in it. I don't eat any of those.
Yep.
I brought a dessert. Will you serve this to me, and I'll pay you a plating fee?" They never. I've yet to be charged a plating fee. I've been to a five-star Michelin starred restaurant. What's that? It wasn't a five-star. Michelin doesn't have 5 stars. It was a really high quality restaurant.
Mhm.
One of the best restaurants in Cincinnati. They served me my dessert, and it was better than what they gave my parents at this meal. Um, and so you can bring your own dessert, you can bring your own dressings, and that'll make a big difference because a lot of oil in these restaurants is canola oil, and they'll
The
say
worst.
legally they can sell you a bottle. This is not canola oil, but they can have a bottle of oil on the table and label it as olive oil. If it's
Yep.
51% olive oil, 49% canola oil, that's a problem because that's not olive oil. That's a blend of olive oil and canola oil. Most of us don't want that. So they'll say this has olive oil in it. Then you got to ask, is there canola oil in that olive oil? Most of the time they will say yes, which means you probably want to bring your own. So these are a couple of hacks. These are a couple of tips you can use to go out to eat with your friends and family. Order, the organic food, order the grass-fed steak or the healthy fish on the menu. Bring your own salad dressing, bring your own dessert, and then you can enjoy this food. And then what's striking to me, Ian, is that when we talk about the food that we eat, you and I, if we were to sit down with the average American and say, this is what we eat, they'd say, well, I can't eat that. I wouldn't enjoy that. I'll say, well, what are you eating now? They'll probably say a bunch of packaged and processed foods that are hyper flavorful but not
Hmm.
satisfying. And we'll say, how do you eat? And they'll likely say, in front of the television or in the car. So these people,
Hmm.
number one, they're not putting their focus on their food, which is
Yep.
crazy from an evolutionary standpoint. The most pleasurable things on earth to human beings are food, sex, and art and music, and or you can throw in spiritual experience. But those are the things we're biologically driven. We're driven to eat. We're driven to play music together or have spiritual celebrations together, and we're driven to have sex. These are the pleasurable things. You want to, by interrupting food with television or your phone, it greatly decreases the pleasure. Plus, you're eating garbage food anyway that's hyper palatable, and so you're super stimulating your taste buds, and you're not even paying attention to it. I remember I was in Miami. Someone ordered a giant ice cream cone, and they took a picture of it for social media, and then they're scrolling social media while they're eating it. And I said, this
Right.
person's eating a day's worth of calories. They're not even enjoying it. This is crazy. And so,
Yeah. Right.
just the way that people are programmed now, they're not even enjoying the things that they're supposed to enjoy. So please turn off the television, turn on some music if you like, and enjoy your food. You will like it so much more. You'll feel so much more full, especially if you chew it really well. Thomas Edison would agree with you, Ian. He was a big fan of thoroughly chewing his food, and you'll enjoy your food more, and you'll feel better, um, and you'll feel more human. Humans did not. We are not designed to eat our food with scrolling social media. It's doing a really
Right.
detriment to our brain, especially our children.
For sure. And that brings us to the topic of dopamine because the hyperpalative foods cause a dopamine release. Scrolling through social media, reading looking at your computer, watching the television, those are all dopamine releasing things that people get addicted to. And then they deplete their dopamine account. So then when it comes to a real celebration or a very special moment where you're getting together and you want that dopamine to be there in a healthy way, it's not available to you. So you can't enjoy the most important things, which is the community and the conversations and getting into that, just the real healthy pleasures unhealthy pleasures are rampant. They're everywhere. And people are so low on dopamine now. It's crazy, like not cool. And I reserve my dopamine very carefully. I've really divorced myself from the idea that I should just eat whatever I want and just, regardless of whether it's good or bad. I'm very, very selective. So when it comes back to the grocery bill, I buy
Oh yes, what's
very,
all that? I gotta know what you're buying.
yeah, so I love a mixture, a ratio of different fats that I prep ahead of time. And these are shelf stable. I keep them in the fridge anyway, but for the day I'll take it out, and that way it's very easy. And it's a mixture of clarified butter. So I get the milk solids and the milk proteins out. They are not good for you. And I take the ghee, well, and I don't take it to the Indian level ghee. Indian level ghee is where they literally almost burn all that stuff out and it turns all brown. Mine's just clarified butter, nice and golden yellow. And then I do a ratio. You know where you can go and get the cream goat cheese, the white stuff? It's really, really beautiful, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor, but it goes with other flavors. So I mix the ghee with the white cream goat cheese. It's a 70% to 30% mixture. 70% ghee, 30% of the goat cheese. And then I throw in a mixture of spices. I also throw in some boursin cheese sometimes because that's so good. And I'm not a big cheese person because there's often a lot of mold in there, which is obviously not good for us. But I make a mixture, then I throw in like Italian herb spices or some chipotle or some chili powder or something, whatever you want to do. And that is the first thing I eat. And I eat it with romaine lettuce, celery, or bok choy. And I eat mostly romaine lettuce because that actually makes you look younger and younger. There's a whole thing around romaine lettuce. But
Ooh,
the
tell,
romaine
tell me.
lettuce has
I
to,
like romaine lettuce.
yep, but it has to be certified organic for sure, and you have to clean it. So I always soak it in a mixture. I use the Solaris or some salt or a combination or some other minerals in the water, and it extracts all the unfriendlies because organic food still has some wrong things in it because of the pollution from the atmosphere. And so I do a mixture of that. When I take like 5 or 6 mouthfuls of this ratio of the fat, which tastes like heaven on earth, by the way. So I mean, it's not ultra palatable, but it's extremely satisfying. That goes in my tummy and immediately stimulates the leptin. And leptin is telling me, like, because that's your master hormone, that's telling me, hey, you're good. And then I eat no more protein than the size of the palm of my hand. And I had a really interesting experience with meat. So, and it's always grass-fed, it's always organic, it's always pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished. And whether it's lamb or beef, it's always got to have the high fat content in
Isn't that
that.
ridiculous? We got to differentiate grass fed and then grass finished. I mean, goodness,
Mhm.
I would like extra virgin olive oil. Great, here you go. But no canola oil. We got to differentiate these micro things in our
Yeah,
in our environment. We know we want grass fed, but now I got to say grass finished too. It's like, oh well, we don't have that. Well, why are you trying to sell me something that you know I want, but you're deceiving me? It's amazing what we allow. So you're eating grass. So you're eating grass fed, grass finished beef or lamb. I'm guessing. Do you eat wild caught salmon?
oh yeah, oh definitely. I mean, the fish are amazing, but they've got to, like you said, be wild caught. They got to come from a clean part of the world that's not totally hammered with mercury in the ocean. And the smaller the fish, the better. The wild caught salmon up in Alaska is awesome. That's really clean.
Do you like sardines? I
And
love sardines.
yep, they're awesome because they're only a tiny fish and they don't absorb hardly anything, and they're extremely good oil.
And so
And so,
sustainable too. They
yeah,
grow so quickly. You see me travel with those. I'll have those in my backpack at a business conference, and everyone else is eating their whatever for lunch. I'm doing the sardines in the corner there.
right. Yeah, that's a very, very good hack. And the other thing that this is really weird. Because I'm not religious about meat, for example. Some religions don't allow pork. And so because a lot of the pork is very fatty, which I thought was good. And so I would mix that up once in a while, not a lot, but every single time that I would eat any pork whatsoever of any form, whether ham or bacon or, pork chops, whatever, within 24 hours, I would be getting pretty nasty body odor in the armpits.
Really,
It's like what's
really.
that? Yeah. It's like, hold it. I took it off the menu because when I would not do it, within a day, my body would clean up. I don't get any body odor off of these other meats. Another thing I love to add in is chicken thighs or chicken legs because they're fatty and they got the skin is fatty, but again, organic. And turkey doesn't have enough. Yeah, turkey is okay, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not against it though, and if somebody served me turkey, I would eat it.
I got a story about pork because I've cut that out recently. So when COVID first hit, I did what most people did, which was stock up on food that will be comfort food. And so one thing
Yep.
I got, I was at Costco. I got a bunch of the fat back, which is basically almost unprocessed bacon. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to spice this up. I'm going to add salt, pepper. I'll even add some sugar to this. I'm going to make some really good bacon. And so I cooked down this bacon. It was delicious. And I noticed about 20 minutes after having some of this, I felt awful.
Mm.
And I don't know how many pieces of bacon I had, but just, it's thick cut. And my gosh, I felt awful. And then I thought, well, what if I took this bacon fat and I used it in my chocolate? I was making chocolate at the time. I had that
Mhm.
chocolate. I felt awful again. I thought,
Wow.
okay, clearly I'm not supposed to be eating this. But I really like barbecue. I spent a lot of time in Texas. I went to school there. I love barbecue. And so I wasn't ready to let go of pork completely. But then I saw the research. And number one, most of the pork in the United States comes out of North Carolina. And
Hmm.
most of those farms are in poor neighborhoods next to poor Black people. And they are disproportionately negatively affected by the pollution. And so I'm not willing to spend my money supporting an industry that's basically harming poor Black people in North Carolina. I'm not, a great thing to do is vote with your dollars. So if a company's doing something unethical, don't buy from them. Buy from the company that's doing ethical things. So buy from the company doing organic foods, not the one spraying pesticides on their food. So I didn't want to buy that anymore. I didn't want to harm those humans or support harming those humans. And then number two, there's research show that pork can contain parasites in it compared to other forms of animal protein. So I'm basically off of pork unless I know where the farm is. And so if I'm at a barbecue restaurant, it was in Kansas City, I said, listen, where's your pork come from? Can you tell me the farm? Can you tell me where it is? Then I'm willing to have a little bit of pork barbecue. But otherwise, I've felt much healthier, similar to you, eating not eating pork. And then it's just not a good ethical thing right now in the United States. Fun side note for those parents out there. So you know how we have strong body odor underneath our arms and then around our genitals? That's where we have more body odor. That's not it's not because the body odor is coming from us. Interestingly, those places sweat a different kind of sweat, a thicker sweat that
Hmm.
attracts different bacteria. And so the bacteria then kind of are breaking down our sweat or living in our sweat or dwelling on our sweat. And they're the ones making those smells. So it's actually not us making those smells. It's oftentimes the bacteria in those areas and their interaction with that thicker, stickier sweat underneath our arms and on our genitals. I thought that was so interesting because I thought, oh, I'm sweating bad smell. Well, most of it is actually how those oils and sweat glands how they're interacting with the bacteria that reside on our body.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. And the interesting point that you made on the pork, so like where it's grown with the farmers, like, so the pork I was eating, we do a trade. We own our own little farm. We have a hobby farm where we raise all of our own. Uh, we have mostly lamb. We used to do beef cattle, but we don't do that anymore because it's too much work.
And
But
where you're in Canada.
in Canada, yeah, yeah, we're just east of Toronto, about an hour and a half, and we've got this little hobby farm my wife runs. And so she was doing some trade, some bartering with a farmer who's all organic, local, and he's very much into the pigs. And so it was the cleanest that you could get, but it was the one that was causing this. I must have been feeding the bacteria, and yeah, it was actually gross. So even the best of the best I found, because I would never touch any pork from the store, like that would just wouldn't happen. But yeah, and it's just a side note, for people to do what they want. And what we're touching on today, Robert, is something that is very sacred to people, which is their food.
Yeah.
People are raised to believe certain things. They don't want us messing with their food. They don't want us telling them what to eat. They want to decide for themselves. So I don't want people to follow me. I just share what I do, and my entire body changed. Now here's an interesting note. Since the beginning of this year, 2024, when I got into this, when I finally found the actual data And I didn't come up with any of this stuff. I was shown. And then I cleaned it up even more from what I was shown. My body, I was slim and trim. I mean, when you saw me, like a year ago, I was slim and trim, right? I wasn't overweight, not obese,
No, you are
but
not overweight.
no. But between February and August of this year, my body dumped 40 pounds off of the weight scale. I'm like, and I don't look much different. I still have a 34-inch waist, which I had before, and it was fluid. It was all the unnecessary fluid that was in my body because I was eating too much protein and I was having too many things that were producing the glucose, whether it was the fructose or whatever. And the science behind that is that every gram of glycogen, which comes from the glucose that stores in your body, has to attach 3 grams of fluid to cool it because glucose burns hot, fast, and dirty. As far as I'm concerned, it's a dirty fuel. And the fat that I'm now running on, my body runs on fat for fuel. It burns cool, slow, and clean. And so my body dumped all this fluid. I'm watching the scale drop off, and I'm not in a weight loss. I don't even have an interest in weight loss because I don't want to lose muscle mass. I don't want to lose bone structure. I don't want to lose the important fluids. I want to burn off all the visceral fat that you were talking about, which I did. So I maybe lost out of that 40 pounds, maybe 5 to 10 pounds of visceral. All the rest of that was fluid because where did it go? I didn't change in size. I feel 10 times better. I can't even believe how much better I feel. But
Really?
that touches that, yeah, but that touches that sacred part of a person's life that they are eating the food that they want to eat. They do not want to be told. And none of us like to be told what to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to upset an adult, try mess with their food. They lose their mind. It's so, because I've tried to adjust family members' eating habits. They do not respond well. And so
No, no,
it's gotta be a choice. So it's so fascinating how hung up we are. Well, I want to eat whatever I want. Well, how's that working out for you? Well, if you're like most Americans, you're overweight or obese, you probably have pre-diabetes, and you're
Mhm.
on your way to an earlier a shorter, less enjoyable life than if you ate like our ancestors did, which is fruits and vegetables and healthy forms of protein and not eating processed foods. And it's fascinating when you take someone's Twinkies away, they just lose it. I posted a video saying, avoid these 3 drinks because these are damaging to your brain. It was really basic ones: soda, it was energy drinks, and then it was alcohol. All these are bad for your brain. Really, really clear. And people say, well, what am I supposed to drink? I think, are all you drinking soda, energy drinks, and alcohol? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Who told you this was a good idea? It's just fascinating to me how attached we are to this quote unquote freedom to eat low dose poison, right? To eat these things that we know are bad for us, we know are harmful to our brain, increase inflammation, accelerate aging, increase the risk of most chronic diseases. And you take it away. Like, similarly, if you touch a dog bowl when the dog is eating, they'll growl at you. Touch someone's food, you're absolutely right. They just something goes off in them where they think, "Hey, how dare you alter my diet or tell me what I can eat?"
Right. The old joke is that drinking whiskey might shorten your life, but you get to see twice as much in half the time. Right? Because the people look at the weight between pleasure, what they like to do, what they find very, very enjoyable, and health and longevity. So, but longevity is another weird term. We look at people who live a long time and they suffer more and more until they die, especially if they live a really long time. And so nobody wants that. But I found out, and what you found out as well, is that you can actually get a little bit healthier every single day in every category as you get older, rather than the opposite, which is getting a little bit less healthy every day in every category until you're dead. So if you're getting healthier every day and you're feeling better and you're running, like right now, I'm running at about a biological age of a 25-year-old, and as well as structural, because that's a whole other subject that we're not talking about today. But the organ function ties right into the brain, of course, but you feel better. You're happier. You're more fun to
Mm-hmm.
be around. You show
Yeah.
up differently. I have
Yeah.
I have a better youthful glow right now than I did when I was 20
You
because I
look
was
fantastic.
poisoning myself by my social conditioning and by my attachment to the food that I wanted to eat, rather than thinking about, is there a tax involved in what I'm eating? Am I taxing my body?
Absolutely.
And the other interesting thing that I discovered is that you and I, right today, we can't feel the end of our life. It's way out there somewhere. And but everything we do is either bringing that day a little bit closer all the time to us, right, sooner than it should be, or every day is extending out to have a much higher quality, much more valuable life. And when I was 46 years old, because of I totally didn't know anything about health, I saw my life, the end of my life at 36 months out. I was like, what is that doing there? I'm 46. What's up? And they call 40 middle age. That's another fallacy. But if people believe that, then, the average age is 75 to 85. But I was just shocked. It's like, what is it doing there? And I had a huge tumor in my perineum. I had liver disease, and I had heart disease. And these things all showed up within a year of itself. And it just blew my mind. I went to the doctors in Toronto and specialists. I mean, it was serious business. And all they could tell me is that this is very common for men in their 40s. I go, oh, wow, is that right? Interesting. Yeah. So percentage of men die in their 40s, a certain in their 50s, a certain in their 60s.
This is common to men in their 40s. This type of deadly disease and cancer is common to men in their 40s. That's an amazing thing for a doctor to say. I mean, I imagine people are hearing that today. Someone goes into the doctor's office, they're obese, they're not happy with it, they're diabetic, and the doctor says, "Oh yeah, this is a common thing for people in their 40s." Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't make it right. And so,
No.
goodness gracious, what can we do? Please continue.
Yeah, well, it was just I realized that the thing, and the other thing was the the proposition from the doctors, what they were prescribing to me, was freaking barbaric. It was like, this is 2004,
So it's
and I
20 years
watched
ago.
right, and this is a very short time ago. 26 years before that, in 1978, my oldest uncle on my mom's side, she had two brothers that were younger than her. He was 53 years old, and he was diagnosed with liver cancer. And so he went through the surgeries, the chemo, everything. And then they said it was in remission within about 4 or 5 months. And then it came back with a vengeance. And then he had to go through the whole thing again. He suffered so much. By the time he died within the first year, he died at 54 years old. He died in September 1978. And his body was literally a skeleton. I've never seen anything so scary in my life. It was like a skeleton with just skin on it. Eyes sunken in. He had a great big, huge tumor that was underneath his right side that was considering the liver. That was consuming all the energy of all the food that he was eating. He couldn't get any nourishment to the rest of his body. It was stealing all of it. And then he died. And the day he died, my uncle, his younger brother, who was 51 at the time, he had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer only 3 months before this. So in July, it was July, August, September. So I guess it was in June of 1978, got diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So they opened him up to see because it had metastasized. And he looked robust and healthy. He wasn't healthy, but he was robust. He was overweight. And when they opened him up, they just said, oh my God. They sewed him up. They did nothing. And when he came out of the general anesthetic and they met with him and they said, sir, you are going to get your affairs in order right now. You have 2 to 3 months to live. He died the day of his older brother's funeral in September 1978. And when that happened, it just shocked the whole family. I mean, especially his mom and dad. Because my grandmother lived 103, and she didn't do any of the stuff my uncles did. But it was just this massive shock, and I remembered that. So here I was at 46, only 26 short years later, and they were offering exactly the same treatments. And
Amazing.
so I called my brother, who was a medical doctor for 30 years in North Bay, and that's where my older uncle lived. And I told him what was going on, and he goes, "Oh man," he says, "You look like Uncle Don, the younger one," and I did. And he said, "It's genetics. It's all genetic predisposition. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. It's got nothing to do with anything you're doing. It's just genetics." And so I get the doctors in Toronto telling me that it's common. Got my brother telling me it's the hand of cards I was dealt. It's like, you guys are totally useless. You're not telling me anything that's going to help me. You're literally guaranteeing, like they died, They were told, you have this, you're going to do that, that, and then you're going to die. Who wants to take advice from somebody who guarantees a funeral? So I was just done. That's what actually stimulated the whole thing. So meeting people like you, I knew people like you existed, but I didn't know who they were and I didn't know where they were and I had no idea how to find them. So my request, because it was desperate, we have 7 children. My youngest was 6 at that time. I'm like, I'm not even close to finishing my life. If I could be led to people who have the deep level information in every category, whether it's brain health, respiratory, circulatory, digestive, endocrine system, autonomic nervous system, whatever, right? All the systems. There are people who have the number one top information in the world, but I have no clue how to find it. But if I could be led to them, I would listen and do whatever it takes. And so that clicked a whole bunch of breakers on that I didn't ever have on before. And I have been willing to do whatever it takes. So I'm a little bit of an odd duck because I'm actually willing to do stuff that people are not willing to do. But the reward has been immense. And so when I ran into you, I was like, okay, here's the guy with the brain. This is the guy who's tapped in at the highest level of natural health for brain. And of course, what you're saying is all systemic as well. And you've covered many different bases in the whole holistic approach to the human body. So that's why I love these conversations with you. Every time we've talked, it's just been great.
It has been great. I, I don't know how much time we have, but I'd love to just touch on alcohol because that was something that before I was unwilling to let go of, and then it became very clear that it wasn't worth it. Alcohol was a huge tax on my life.
Right.
And so like I drank way too much in college, probably too much in graduate school, and actually had a couple of friends die from accidents based upon alcohol, young guys in their early 20s. And I noticed that when I would drink alcohol at night, just a glass of wine at dinner, I was less able to work at night. And I like working at night. I like what I do. And so I thought, wow, this glass of wine at dinner, this is a tax on the rest of my night because I'm cognitively more slow. I'm not able to do my work. And this isn't any good. And not only that, but alcohol is just such a huge tax on our whole body health. There's a great podcast by Dr. Andrew Huberman on this. And the basic summary is alcohol impairs these major systems in the body. Alcohol hurts your gut bacteria. That's a bad deal. What's good for your gut is good for your brain. So by harming your gut bacteria, you're harming your brain and a lot of other systems in the body. Alcohol is bad for the liver. No surprise there. Alcohol
Yeah.
impairs the gut-brain connection. That's a bad deal. Alcohol also increases inflammation. That's a major cause of aging, a major contributing factor to Alzheimer's disease. It's a darn big deal. And then alcohol turns off part of the brain in the prefrontal cortex, which involves self-monitoring. We're all familiar with, drink some alcohol and that loosens up our tongue. What it actually does, it turns off part of our brain that's involved in monitoring what we say. It's probably not a good idea to regularly be turning off part of our brain. And then alcohol impairs sleep, and it also impairs the immune system. So we're talking basically every major system in the body, alcohol impairs it. And when you impair your sleep, you're impairing so many different things because alcohol is really important for pretty much every system in our body system, including our brain, energy, so important. And so alcohol impairs all these things, even light alcohol. Now, I'm not telling anyone not to drink. And I'm not telling anyone not to smoke. When I lived in Las Vegas, I smoked a bit. Smoking feels great. Alcohol feels great. I get it. It's fun to do. Everyone else is doing it. I totally understand. I have enjoyed parties, social occasions, so much more not drinking because I'm a more interesting person. I'm more compassionate. I'm a better listener. I'm more enjoyable to be around, and I enjoy myself more. I especially love drinking coffee. I've done this at meetings. So we're at lunch. Everyone's having a beer with lunch. I'm drinking 2 cups of coffee. I'm getting smarter as they're getting dumber. It's tons of fun. So I really enjoy being in great health when everyone else is drinking alcohol, even if I'm the only one. It just feels really good. And so, I mean, if you're gonna have 1 drink a week or 2 drinks a week, probably not a big deal. But this myth, it's no longer backed by science. I used to believe that 1 to 2 drinks a day was really healthy for your heart. I don't know why that association was found. I don't think that association exists anymore. It might be an income issue because if you can avoid 2 glasses of wine a day, you're probably not starving, and so it might be an income issue. But 0 glass of wine a day certainly healthier than 2 glasses of wine a day. And then the stress impact of alcohol. So basically, it reduces stress short term. So if you drink alcohol, reduces stress now, but the next day you're actually more stressed. And so it increases
Mhm.
stress long term. And so alcohol is just, for me, it's not worth it. And then for adults, I mean, I have family members who really enjoy wine. I'm not taking their wine away. And I am suggesting if you really limit your wine, you feel better. You're going to lose weight, and it's really good for your body. And as I really enjoyed the altered state of consciousness that comes with those substances, and life is so much more enjoyable not numbing myself with alcohol. Like the trade off is so worth it. It's so much more fun being not drinking alcohol and being feeling really healthy. In social occasions, than just doing what everyone else is doing, which is eating unhealthy food and then drinking alcohol. What's your experience with alcohol, Ian?
So I was never a big drinker. I just didn't get along well with it, but I would have the odd beer once in a while. I'd have the odd glass of wine. And in May 2019, I just stopped all consumption of alcohol 100%. But that was because it was interrupting. Like I would only ever have wine. And if I had wine, just one glass of wine with a meal, I would always wake up at 2 in the morning every single time. I'd be wide awake at
Really?
2 in the morning. Yeah, I was like, what's that? But
So something
the
you and I have
thing,
described, I'm sorry, just to pause you, something you and I have described is eating food, drinking things, and testing ourselves and noticing this. So for everyone watching, try this. See what happens when you drink alcohol. Notice the changes. See what happens when you don't drink alcohol. See what happens when you eat certain foods. When you
right.
start noticing how different things affect you. What happens when you watch scary movies late at night?
Hmm.
Notice how these different inputs affect you. When you do that, you could then modify your behavior so you feel really good. So you noticed, the pork, you smell bad. You noticed drinking the alcohol, you wake up at night. Most people wouldn't notice these things. And so when you notice how these different inputs affect us, we're able to course correct and make changes in our life that are really effective.
For sure. And the other two things that totally kicked it in for me that I knew I would never touch it again, not even in a tincture, is the alcohol is a significant diuretic, which is going to make you lose important fluids that you don't want to lose. That means you're going to be dehydrating. You're not going to get the right hydration to the brain. And the other one is it is a hyperglucose. It jacks the friggin' blood sugar immediately. It's hypercarb. And so that's the last thing I want. I don't want those two things. That was just the final deal. Right? I don't even have any desire for it. It's not like I'm telling myself not to drink. I want not to drink. My body says, not a chance. Are you putting that in there? I don't care how much social juices it might cause. If you're out in an environment where everybody's drinking, to look at you like in business, some people, if you don't drink with them, they don't trust you in business. Well, if they don't trust me in business because I don't drink with them, I don't trust them in business. It's like,
So Ian, before we go, I'd love to give you my top five brain supplements just to help people who want to get started in that area. Of course, exercise and sleep and diet are the fundamentals, and then supplements can be such a fast and easy things to add on top of that important foundation of health that can really help people.
yeah, I love that. So, yeah, where do you want to start there?
So here are my top five brain supplements. Number one is curcumin. I love curcumin because it's so beneficial for the brain and the body. Primarily, curcumin is a major anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is one of the primary risk factors of Alzheimer's disease and many other chronic diseases. Research in animals shows that mice and rats given curcumin have less amyloid plaque in the brain than the control mice and rats. So that's a darn big deal. And then curcumin also helps protect against the damage of obesity. And so obese mice given curcumin have less damage to their organs than the control mice. So curcumin, really, really great, extremely safe. About 1,000 milligrams a day with some black pepper is a really great place to start. And there's over 500 clinical trials in humans in the last 2 years on curcumin. So just a lot of studies and data coming out of this. Number two, this one's a foundational one. This is magnesium. So magnesium, especially magnesium threonate, is so helpful for the brain because magnesium threonate can cross the blood-brain barrier. And then research shows in dissection studies of Alzheimer's brains that people who have Alzheimer's have a deficiency in magnesium compared to a healthy brain. And so it's really important that we eat enough magnesium-rich foods, and a magnesium supplement can be really an easy way to do that. And also, magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic processes in the body. And so that's a really great thing for people to start that's foundational. Another foundational one is fish oil,
Hmm.
specifically the DHA in fish oil. That's an omega-3 fatty acid. So our
Yep.
brains outside of water are made primarily of fat. And so by giving our brain a lot of healthy fat like DHA, that can give our brain the raw materials to repair itself and even make new brain cells. We know that based upon research from Dr. Elizabeth Gould at Stanford, human beings can grow new brain cells in adulthood, including past our 90s. So having a lot of healthy fat, that's a really great thing for the brain. Number four is B complex vitamins, not just B12, but all the B vitamins. Research from Dr. David Smith at Oxford found that those who take a B complex vitamin and fish oil have a 30% reduction in the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So you want both B complex vitamins, make sure they're methylated B complex, and a fish oil supplement. Those go really well together. And the last one, this is probably my favorite one, is lion's mane. So lion's mane is a medicinal mushroom used in ancient Chinese and Japanese medicine. It's got so many different benefits for both the brain and the body. So lion's mane is anti-inflammatory, so that helps protect the brain from Alzheimer's disease. Inflammation is one of the primary risk factors of Alzheimer's disease. Lion's mane helps improve memory in both human and animal studies. So that's a darn big deal. Lion's mane can help grow new brain cells by increasing a growth factor in the brain called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's a growth factor that facilitates the growth of new brain cells and neural connections. So that's really gosh darn important. Lion's mane helps reduce depression and anxiety. There's a great study. It was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study in and I think it was 30 women, and they gave them lion's mane cookies for 30 days. Those who ate the lion's mane cookie had less depression and anxiety than those who ate the regular cookie. And so lion's mane can be helpful with that. It improves mood. I really like to take it when I socialize. I'm just a nicer, happier, more positive person. And then my favorite benefit of lion's mane improves sleep. It helps people fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and fall back to sleep. As we know, sleep is essential for making new memories and having a healthy brain. And so those are five really powerful supplements backed by science that are great for the brain.
Yeah, very cool. And I've had some fun with the other thing you told me about was the lion's mane and the L-tyrosine.
I
Because
love that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite supplement combination for improving mood and socializing. And so I was recently at Burning Man. That's one of my favorite places to go. It's where I do a lot of growing up. I contribute a lot to my camp. I help build camp. I run the speaker series. I help clean up afterwards. And I evolve and become a better person every time I go there. And so taking L-tyrosine and lion's mane is one of my favorite things to do at Burning Man because it's really healthy for the brain. It's increases dopamine or the ability to make dopamine, and lion's mane is really good for the brain, as I just mentioned. And taking those two together feels amazing. It improves mood, it improves memory, and it just increases energy. It's wonderful. And so I love giving that to friends either during the day or at night and say, hey, are you going to go out and socialize? You're going to go out and dance? Take this. This is what I'm taking tonight. Lion's mane and L-tyrosine. It's one of my favorite supplement combinations because it feels so good, increases energy and increases positivity, which I think is what we generally want when we're socialized with people. They take one L-tyrosine, take two lion's mane, and just watch what this does for your productivity and your creativity today. And then people loved it.
yeah, I did a little test because I enjoy the mood upgrade and all that stuff. I did a little test, and I wasn't actually testing it, but this is what happened. I had a series of videos that I had to get done, and I can usually do one video per day because it takes a lot of brain power because you're tapping into all the knowledge that you have about that particular subject. And the videos would take, like an hour each. They wouldn't be an hour long, but it would take an hour to get through them. And it was late, and I was feeling really good. So I took the two lion's mane and took the scoop of L-tyrosine and got that down. And then I started about an hour later. I started doing the videos, and I had 5 full videos I had to do, and it was late at night. So I thought, okay, I'll get one in the can. I kept having more and more energy, and I felt better and better, and I was getting more creative. I ended up doing all 5 and I would never normally do this because I started late at night at 11, and I finished at like 4 in the morning. And I just powered right through all of them, got them all done. It was like, I've never had that happen before. Wow. And that was and then I went, oh, that's what that was. It was the L-tyrosine and the lion's mane. I didn't expect that at all. Because I would normally be in bed by that point, let alone starting at 11 o'clock at night. But we were under the gun because I hadn't had time to get them done. It was lagging, and I procrastinated a little bit. But that was a really interesting experience on that.
So a good dose of L-tyrosine is about 500 milligrams. And then I recommend taking that earlier in the day because it will keep you up because it increases dopamine substantially. And then just a disclosure, I have a lion's mane supplement. So for those of you watching, I just want you to know I talk positively about it, and I also have a business associated with lion's mane. And so please do your own research on lion's mane. I found it to be really beneficial in the scientific research, and really beneficial for both me and my customers.
So where can people find you? What's your handles on the social media platforms and your website?
So my name's Robert Love. If you just search Robert Love on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, I pop right up. I look like this. I'm wearing a black shirt, and so you can find me there. If you, the official handle is Robert WB Love on all channels. Or just search Robert Love Neuroscientist. I come right up. And then for those of you interested in a great lion's mane supplement, my website is roarlionsmane.com. So roar, like a lion roars, roarlionsmane.com, and you can read about the benefits of lion's mane there. And then you can try some risk-free if you want to check that out as well. So Ian, thank you so much for having me on. This is
Yeah, it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you, and you've shared so many powerful, valuable things for everyone who's listening. And I get to learn every time I speak with you as well. It's been really awesome, Robert. So I look forward to more conversations in the future, and let's have fun with this.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again. See you later.
Bye-bye.